Rails.
Well, hello and welcome back. It's been a while. Did you miss us? Here we are tonight to bring this subject, logical fallacies 101, let's call it, sure, with Dr. Time Waster. Let's break it on down. We're getting our brain right in there. Felt like I was asleep for a few weeks. Now
I've
you're
been asleep
waking
for
me up.
several
What the
weeks.
hell?
Welcome. Thank you for the wonderful introduction there.
Sorry.
Yeah, we were gone for a while. I think last week was obvious. It was the 4th of July, and like, who wants to watch us yap on when we could watch fireworks, I guess. Anyway, yes, lots of things have come up. Tyler is not with us today because unfortunately a hurricane ripped through his neighborhood and he is still without power. Texas is not really well known for its infrastructure, so
Burl?
No, it insists on
Burl?
being separate.
You
That's
done did it again, Burl.
Don did it.
Y'all done did it, Burl. And isn't there like supposedly a new one coming in or something? Chris?
God damn it, I don't know.
I thought I saw an image of like another one behind it called Chris. And I was like, what kind of name is Chris?
Ooh, Chris the Hurricane. There's been a lot of kind of lame named hurricanes throughout the years.
Chris spelled with a K. I mean, if anybody doesn't know,
that's what I was thinking. If it was spelled with a K, then I'm like, yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, the way they name hurricanes is when hurricane season starts, the first hurricane, every hurricane is a woman's name, and the first hurricane of the season is named with an A. The second hurricane of the season is named starting with a B and a C. That's how that naming works.
I see. But they're not always female names, right? You're just saying the first one is always a female?
No, all hurricanes are female names as far as I've ever known.
Hurricane Andrew was a pretty shitty hurricane.
There was a Hurricane Andrew?
Oh, when you were a baby.
Yeah, no, this is the first male name I've ever heard.
Oh.
I thought they were exclusively female names.
I mean, maybe they are now. Maybe Hurricane Andrew came through and they were like, "This is bad."
No more males. We can't have men ripping through the Gulf Coast anymore.
Frederick?
Women only.
Is there a Frederick and a George?
Really? How am I just now hearing hurricanes with male names?
Welcome. Coming in with the info. Coming in hot.
Thank you for educating me. That's what we're going to be doing today, finding out how we're wrong.
I need to be educated.
I thought Beryl was a gender neutral name, to be perfectly honest. I've never heard of that name before.
What Beryl is. It's not
the first gender neutral hurricane. Oh.
Hey.
Beryl?
Like that idea.
Did you say Beryl?
Beryl. Yeah, Beryl.
Am I saying it wrong?
No, I just thought you were saying like a whiskey barrel type.
Oh,
a
barrel.
Barrel. That's a non-binary name. My name's Beryl.
Maybe it is pronounced
oil barrel.
You start recycling.
Well, welcome back, everybody.
Yes.
Hey, there you go. We were on one for a minute.
So,
yep.
What do you expect?
Today's supposed to be about logical fallacies, right?
Correct.
And I mentioned to you before the show that I was pulling up the Wikipedia list of logical fallacies so I could look through them. And I just looked up during this conversation and I saw cherry picking, which we've all heard of cherry picking. But apparently there is another logical fallacy underneath that category called nut picking.
Sorry. Why'd that make me laugh?
I don't know. It was the same reason that it made me go on this tangent about seeing it. I just had to bring it to y'all's attention because of the name. I've never heard of it.
Is there a difference?
What is it? A nominal difference or what?
Nut picking is suppressed evidence, incomplete evidence, using individual cases or data that falsify a particular position, while ignoring related cases or data that may support that position. That sounds like cherry picking to me.
It sounds like cherry picking to me. I don't know the difference, but
Yeah.
maybe it's the Urban Dictionary fallacy. I don't know.
We're just gonna start nut picking instead of cherry picking from now on. Depends on what
Why
gender
are
you
you nut
identify
picking?
as. Which one you want to do. You want to pick
What about
people's cherries
raspberry
or people's
picking?
nuts?
Blueberries. I like blueberry
Right.
picking.
Pick people's blueberries.
Well, you bring up a good point, and all right, I'm gonna step back here a second. I wanted to do this topic for a while, not because I'm an expert by any means. It has been, dare I say, decades since I last officially studied this topic in a very brief manner. But I wanted to talk about that real quick because growing up Jehovah's Witness, I always knew I would never get to go to college. And then I got disfellowshipped, or what's it called again? Dismissed, deferred,
Removed?
removed.
No. Oh, no. They call it. What is it called now? Oh my
I
God!
don't
I
know.
look about this.
Same thing, different terminology. It doesn't really matter. Anyway.
Disfellowship?
Oh, it is removed.
Disassociated?
No. It's not disfellowship. We're not disfellowshipped anymore. We're removed.
Excommunicated?
Excommunicated. We are deleted. We were invited to guest. Anyway, so when I did that, I was like in my early 20s, and I was like, I'm going to do this difficult thing and go to college. And so I went to a community college, and the very first class I ever took was Psych 101. And the very first topic that we covered was logical fallacies. And it was literally like, why have I never really thought about this in this format before? This is eye-opening, and it was a huge step. And the reason why they teach it to freshmen in the beginning of college is because it helps you discern and critically think through every data that comes at you. There's a fallacy called the fallacy of fallacies, which means just because they used a logical fallacy doesn't maybe mean that it couldn't still be a valid, a correct assumption. Maybe like being right for all the wrong reasons kind of thing.
Right.
So how do you know? How do you know if what you're dealing with is a fallacy that makes the argument worthless, or it really is a bad backlist with no information or data or way to prove it? How do you know if it's a fallacy or a fallacy of a fallacy? And so that just really set me up for asking those questions. And what I would suggest to everybody, if you've not already done this, if you've not really gone through logical fallacies, is I think we're gonna play around, and we're gonna think a lot of examples, and we'll probably maybe pick on some sort of literature, maybe, and see how many logical fallacies we can find as practice. But I think one of the best things to do is to practice on yourself. Because if you can pick out all of the times that you use a logical fallacy or you make a bad argument, that is a huge step to being able to catch it in everything else. And I think it's hard to do it to yourself, but you kind of have to start somewhere. And I think it's just best to start with yourself.
Over time. It gets easier over time to do it to yourself. At some point, it just becomes natural to think that you're an idiot.
I honestly think I'm an idiot like all the time.
Right.
I'm like, oh God.
I think being an idiot, it's about arming you for not only how to determine if somebody else is making a bad argument or a fallacious statement, but it's making sure you hold yourself accountable to, do I actually know that to be true? And that was like one of the main things that I do all the time in my job. If I didn't say, wait, hold up, you just popped an answer off the top of your head, do you know that to be true for a fact? Is that still true today? And then I have to go and double check and make sure and go, yep, I was correct. Because you know what? There are times where I remember it wrong, right? And so if you don't hold yourself accountable and start with yourself, how are you ever gonna, what's the point? Anyway, it's hard, but you can get past it. And I think it's a huge step for helping you critically think through, make sure I don't get sucked into a cult again, right? That's
100%
good motivation.
I'm always so astutely aware of, or trying to be, like acutely aware of if I'm approaching that. Yeah.
Anyway, here's my idea. Why don't we just start with Google?
Google?
Google.
You want me to pop
I want
that
to
up?
share my screen.
How do you know it's not fallacious to start with this corporation?
You're
gonna ask it.
pick your favorite browser. Every one of them are corrupt in some way because information is money. Okay. Anyway, moving on. I don't know. This is a good question. How do we know what information to trust? But we got to start somewhere. And this information is everywhere. So beyond Google.
Are you getting an AI answer on your Google searches?
Probably. I don't know. It's this hotspot blog thing.
Gotcha.
What I was gonna say is we're gonna look at some stuff later that I literally just pulled from going to images. So if you want to find what I'm gonna do later, you go logical fallacies, images, and you'll find it.
Just real quick, I would say if you ever get an AI answer from a search engine right now, I would ignore all of those completely. I wouldn't even bother reading them. I don't know if you've read any of them, but sometimes they are completely outlandishly wrong.
Yeah, because I don't know where they're pulling their information from.
Nobody knows where AI is pulling its information from at any given point.
So what's funny though is that I have done the research on a particular topic, like can this drug be crushed and given rectally? How will it absorb? What are the effects? And do we need to adjust the dose? Right?
Good AI answer.
And I went and did all my research. One of my coworkers also did some information gathering, and we came up with the same result. And then we were like, "Hey, let's put it. I think we have like one of the AI ones. I don't remember." And so we were like, put in a very, very specific medical question, and it literally pulled up all the same research we had found. So it was kind of validating.
Oh, it did. Nice.
Yeah, it did. I'm not saying that you should ever 100% trust it, because we're going to go and we're going to look into fallacies and stuff, and we're going to find that you can manipulate the data. So just know that you can always manipulate the data. Even what I found could have been manipulated data, but you have to read it. You have to actually want to know the answer to actually know if it's true. Anyways, we want to go to like just Wikipedia.
This is where you went? I'm at on my computer right now.
Where's the right now? Which fallacy?
Which palace?
We can go with any of them. I don't know.
All right. Well, what I want to point out to people is as you go and do things, you'll see that fallacies are labeled, grouped different ways depending on where you're looking for them. And sometimes you can see that maybe they've called it a different term. It's the same fallacy, it's the same concept, but there's a different name for it. And so like there's a bunch of, like, I think Texas sharpshooter is also cherry picking.
Oh.
So anyway, as you guys do that, just know sometimes there's multiple names. Do you guys, what do you want to look at here?
Well, we definitely need to go over like the more common ones. Okay.
Well, I guess what I would say is it's Wikipedia, so take it for what it is. But there's a lot of places that I'm going to share a different screen here. Hold on a second. There's a lot of different places that that have looked into this. They've taught this. These are lectures, you know, right? There's professors who teach this kind of thing. So right. it's I'm not reinventing the wheel here. So I found this poster, which is a website. You can go to this website if you want to share my share here.
Share the share.
This is one of those ones where I went to the images because I like visuals.
Me too.
And this is by no means a complete list. There's a lot of different overlap, and I have a completely different image to show you in a minute where there's also similar breakdowns. They're named differently, but they're all kind of overlapping. There's some that aren't in here, and there's some that are. So anyway, some of this should sound familiar. You've probably heard, if you've ever been on TikTok and heard anyone argue anything, there's a couple of logical fallacies I think we've all heard before. Which is the one that speaks to you the most?
Well, ad hominem is very common.
Yeah, that's usually like the one people pull out, like quick out the draw.
Well, you're stupid.
I mean, I can't say that I don't do that to people. purely because I just want to insult them. So
I mean, okay. I mean, I'll try not to do it when I'm actually arguing. I'll try not to do it.
No. If I want to argue with somebody, I won't go that route. But sometimes they're just so stupid. I'm just
Yeah.
like,
When I decide I don't feel like arguing,
it's not worth.
you're not gonna get it. I'm like, let me
You're
just insult
dumb.
you instead.
This is literally the internet.
Yep. You're here to get your feelings hurt, buddy. That's what the internet is for.
I gotta tell you, this is probably one of the main ones I actively will call myself on and every time I do it. Because let's face it, you're not gonna win any arguments by being a dick, right? So if you really actually are genuinely trying to make a point, can somebody goad you into like getting to that point where you're frustrated and angry with them and you make an ad hominem? Sure. But again, that's a fallacy, right? Like, yeah, they made a fallacy by being ad hominem, but it was because somebody has been ridiculous the whole argument and then goaded you into that one moment, right?
Real quick, I just want to say you're not going to convince anybody by being a dick, but you can convince people while being a dick. And
of course.
Christopher Hitchens is my example on that.
Yeah, well, as somebody who is logical to the point where they don't care if they're hurting your feelings, kind of thing, or
yes, that is exactly what I mean. Like they will just say, "Oh, well, how funny it is that you're that stupid that you didn't know this."
Hitch slapped. That's right.
That's right. Exactly what I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's the internet. How about any other ones?
Besides that homonym, another common one is straw man.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's a good one.
I think that was, sorry, I got this weird ass straw man up here. Misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. Holy crap, I think that's literally every Jehovah's Witness argument on evolution.
Oh, that's exactly right. That whole book.
Oh my God, they misrepresented everything.
So yeah, that is exactly right, because you're trying to tear down that book, which does not actually say anything about evolution at all. So you're sitting there trying to tear down a straw man.
Let's see. There's another one.
Example.
What's a straw man? You want me to read the straw man example?
If you have a good straw man example, yeah.
Sure. Well, there's one in here.
No, do it. Read it after Will said whatever.
Yeah, after Will said that we should put more money into health and education, Warren responded by saying that he was surprised that Will hates our country so much that he wants to leave it defenseless by cutting military spending. How many times have we heard shit like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such a binary thought. Either or. It's got to be either or.
I just Googled straw man example, and it said if a parent tells their child they can't see their friends tonight, and the child responds, "Why do you hate me?"
You hate me.
That seems like gaslighting.
A little, yeah.
Yeah, kind of straw manish. Yeah.
This seems like a good answer, quite frankly. Why do you hate me?
Yeah. Well, because you came out at me. That's why I hate you.
Is that one on there?
Which one?
False dichotomy.
False dichotomy. Here, sorry, let me
dichotomy.
Just zoom out here.
Just hit control.
Somebody else asked about post hoc. Oh, is it? Shoot, which one?
Yeah.
False dilemma.
Post propter hoc ad hoc fallacy. Do I have that one on this one?
I don't.
I found false dichotomy.
Here it is. It's on a different one. I'll show you in just a second. Literally after the fact, therefore because of the fact. an assertion that if one thing happens before another, the first thing caused the second thing. My child had a measles vaccine. My child was diagnosed with autism. Therefore, vaccine caused autism.
Post hoc.
Post hoc ergo propter hoc. So this is why you'll see these ones is what I started out with, because the names of them are like more colloquial. A lot of these other ones are kind of very, like, I don't know, like what's the word?
I don't know what the term is, but I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Scientific naming kind of literature style. What is the word I'm looking for? Good Lord.
No, too smart for the britches.
People want to sound elitist. They
call
it the other name.
Dang, now I don't know. Now I'm confused.
Let's see. Is there a false dichotomy?
A synonym to elitist, basically? Fancy pants. That's the word you're looking for. You're looking for the word fancy pants.
Class A.
What was the other one? The appeal to nature one is one that's always sort of annoyed me.
That is annoying. Especially usually when I hear appeal to nature arguments, it's usually things that occur in nature. It's usually they're wrong usually. Well, that's not natural. Actually, it is extremely natural and happens among all these species.
I mean, natural, people define things as natural that they bought at a grocery store packaged in plastic packaging, and I'm like, was it natural?
I mean, if
where
you really
do we
want to
draw
get
the line on natural is all I'm saying. And then when you start realizing there's a spectrum of natural,
if you really want to get into it, I mean, we can talk about how are you defining natural. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
You could say, right. I know.
But if you're gonna make an entire argument for why you believe something is better for you because you think it's natural and no other reason other than because nature made it, and that's why it's better.
Right, nature makes poison too. So
it sure does. In fact, there's a lot of medications that save lives that are technically nature's poison in very specific and scientifically dosed doses. Foxglove is digoxin, which is used for preventing heart failure or reducing heart failure, usually.
What I was going to say is, I mean, you could say that a watch is a natural thing. Like, humans are natural occurring beings, and whatever they make is naturally occurring. Just like, otherwise, you could say that a beehive is not natural because, I mean, how do you want to look at it?
That's a good one. Look at the trees.
Trees. Oh, is that?
What's the look at the trees one? Somebody mentioned appeal to authority.
Oh yes, that was mentioned.
Saying that because an authority thinks something, it must therefore be true.
Right. Just because a celebrity or somebody you admire.
This is how people look at morality often. They say because God said this is moral, that's what's moral.
Vertical morality, God, it's an appeal to authority.
Right.
And you know, just because something was published in a medical journal doesn't mean that it wouldn't be retracted later because it was found to be woefully inerrant, right? Or errant. I was going for something there.
Fancy pants words we were talking about.
I tried. I went for it, and then I
errant
failed.
Inerrant. Maybe I can understand inerrant, but you want me to understand the base form of that word? It's not going to happen.
This is why.
Too far.
All right. Somebody else said black or white. Well, I think they said either or fallacy. I think it's the same as the black or white fallacy, where two alternative states are presented as the only possibilities when in fact more possibilities exist.
Right.
And sometimes if there's just two possibilities, it's probably very statistically likely that there's a spectrum in between those possibilities that can be a completely different thing, or its own unique part of a spectrum. I'm gonna like the fucking light spectrum, purple, yellow. Those are different colors, but they're all part of the same narrow bandwidth of wavelength. Just super cool.
Absolutely. I feel like I used to think a lot in black and white without realizing so many things can be true at the same time, or there's other variables that you've just not been presented with or thought about simply because you just accept the information as true was what because what you're given. And we're primed for that, being former Jehovah's, as a Jehovah's Witness, but still kind of primed for that behavior, because now having to learn these kind of fallacies and break them all down, it takes a lot of breaking down like your cognitive dissonance and stuff. Like, you don't realize you're hitting a wall sometimes. But I definitely like what was it Dinah who said thinking in color instead of black and white?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess we were all on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, because you said, you also said. Mhm.
I will see
That
myself
was
out.
very punny.
I always like the slippery slope. I think somebody else brought up the slippery slope argument, asserting that if we allow A to happen, then Z consequently will happen too, and therefore A should not happen. This is a common thing that I see lots of people use a lot. And even if I agree with the sentiment of it, it is a little like unappealing when I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. You didn't have to say something dumb. It doesn't have to be that dire. People exaggerate something sometimes and basically make a good argument into a slippery slope argument, and you didn't need to, other than it sensationalizes something. And boy, is the internet fan of sensationalism as well as ad hominems.
A common place that I find slippery slope argument is with people's immigration policies that are not very well thought through. So, if we let the Mexicans in, then they're all gonna rape our women, and
Oh
then
God.
we're gonna have mixed race babies.
I'm
That was
sorry, I'm laughing because it's so funny and
that was the
dumb.
logic
weird.
about
Yeah, I'm
80
sorry.
years ago. Very common, and a lot of people still have the
Well,
same
yeah,
logic that I hear today.
it's
And the
very
new logic is not that different.
no.
So that is the thing I think of whenever I think of slippery slope is, well, it's just something that is completely just whatever is into my mind usually. Well, I don't have any other good examples besides that, I guess.
Let's see. Bandwagon. Somebody mentioned bandwagon.
What's
Appealing to popularity,
Oh,
or
okay.
the fact that many people do something as an attempted form of validation.
Islam
Okay.
is the fastest growing religion.
Therefore, it's correct.
Right.
Therefore, it's correct.
That's right.
Right.
Billions of people couldn't be wrong, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes, serious question, help me out, make sure like my brain is thinking right. Sometimes like you do need to appeal to that, don't you? Or no?
A fallacy. Some things could be right because the majority believe in something. The majority of people believe that, a rainbow is made up of light waves at different wavelengths. Is it potentially, or I guess
Are you saying it's true because people believe it's true?
Right. Well, I guess that's the thing. Not everything is a bandwagon just because it's popular.
I don't think you do need to ever reference any fallacies.
I mean, something can be true and billions of people can believe that it's true.
Right.
It's true.
Right. That can
But
happen, yes.
if that's the only logic and reason and data that you have to say that that thing is true,
Okay, and that's probably
that's where I think it's a fallacy, because if you didn't actually go and do any thought process to find other avenues of whether or not any particular religion is true, but you just did it because everybody else is doing it, then
Right. So all of your fallacious arguments are cherries on top after all of your logical arguments. Just be like, oh, and also everybody else thinks the same thing.
Boom. That sucker.
It could work. It could work.
That makes sense. I'm glad you
keep your fallacious stuff for the end of your persuasive argument. What else we got? I'm looking at the Wikipedia page still. I haven't really looked at your...
The appeal to emotion one, I think, is very effective. Because anytime you appeal to people's emotional states, you're very much likely to be more effective. And so that's something I also try to be very cognizant of. I try to, like if I'm hearing it and I'm going, you haven't really said much of anything other than how it will make me feel, or how it will, if all you're doing is talking about the emotions of it, but I'm not hearing anything else other than those things, then I start, little red flags start going up to scrutinize what I'm listening to more. It could still be fine. I don't think that some things, you're talking about children with cancer. I mean, you might be a monster if you're not at least a little emotionally involved for something that could be so heartbreaking. So but if you're,
that's all you have.
It's the commercials on TV where they had the puppies that needed homes and the Sarah McLachlan music. Or the children who are starving in another country and they're exploiting them for only pennies a day. You can, and it was really just a scam to, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm feeling pretty emotional right now.
You can donate now.
Yes.
That does kind of make me sad, though. I did this. It made me sad. I wonder where that money went.
Sarah McLachlan's coming out with a sequel to that song soon. Your money hadn't been wasted.
Oh dear. Wonder how much she's made from that.
So I was looking at your infographic now and saw the next...
The Texas sharpshooter? Wait, I'm sorry. What?
No, not that one. I saw two...
No, I know, but I'm like, what the fuck is that name?
Oh, that was cherry picking. I was looking at Tukwoke.
Oh, Tukwoke.
Because I've never heard that before or seen that before ever.
I've heard
avoiding having oh, what's that? Sorry, I was reading it. What?
No, read it.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Avoiding having to engage with criticism by turning it back on the accuser and answering criticism with criticism. That also could be a form of gaslighting.
That's what I would have. Okay.
Oh, it's literally translating as you too. This fallacy is commonly employed as an effective red herring because it takes the heat off the accused having to defend themselves and shifts the focus back onto the accuser themselves. And then the example is, Nicole identified that Hannah had committed a logical fallacy, but instead of addressing the substance of her claim, Hannah accused Nicole of committing a fallacy earlier in the conversation. So it's just a way of like avoiding the question, avoiding the criticism, the consequences, shifting blame.
That's a good one. People do that. Maybe I've done that. I don't know. I'm sure I have. Maybe. I don't know.
If anybody's been in an argument with somebody and been like, well, what about you?
Yeah. You did A, B, C, D.
Oh, what I'm reading, the definition on the Wikipedia one says,
Why are they always sad?
It says stating a position is false, wrong, or should be disregarded because the proponent fails to act consistently in accordance with it. So what came into my mind was people. I was specifically thinking of Hassan online advocating for socialism or communism, and people saying, "Well, you say you advocate for that, but you make a bunch of money in capitalism. You have like $1 million. What about you?" And that is they're taking the focus away from his argument and just going,
And
"Well, you're not living in accordance with your argument."
right.
Um,
So basically avoiding the issue.
again, just kind of almost similar to straw man, I guess, kind of giving it something unrelated.
I could see them being slightly overlappy.
You're no longer addressing the actual argument anymore.
Right.
So ambiguity is a fallacy?
Ambiguity, using double meanings or ambiguity of language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. It says politicians are often guilty of using ambiguity to mislead and will later point to how they were technically not outright lying if they come under scrutiny. It's a particularly tricky and premeditated fallacy to commit. Basically anything Donald Trump's ever done.
Isn't this basically what our entire legal system is?
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Predicated on.
Yeah.
Can you be ambiguous enough to not go to jail?
I mean, technically I didn't say I would do that. I just implied that maybe
if somebody were to do it, that
somebody would
me,
do it.
That it would happen this way. If I did it, written by O.J. Simpson.
And he died just recently too, didn't he?
Oh,
He
yes, he
actually
did.
wrote that book.
Ooh.
If I did it, and then
If I did it. Who
one of the
snuffed
families
that?
bought the rights to it, or got the rights to it, handed to them by court, and they kept the title, but the word "if" was printed extremely tiny inside of the letter I. Did it. So it said I did it, and then it was like "if" in like tiny letters.
How smart. Are you serious?
That is what happened. Yes.
I did not why have I not heard this? Is it on TikTok?
You can just look up the book "If I Did It" and you'll see the cover for it.
Okay. Anyway, off topic, but thank you for
I'll get
that
back up to
tidbit.
use the bathroom.
That's very interesting. Okay, on to the next.
On to the next. I was just noticing the burden of proof and no true Scotsman fallacy are also very popular on the internet.
Yeah.
That I've seen. Burden of proof, saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with someone else to disprove.
Mhm.
I believe God exists. Prove me wrong.
Right.
God, or I guess I would have to say, I know God exists. Prove me wrong. Which you can't prove what somebody knows, right?
Hello.
Very easily, anyway. And then the other one, making no true Scotsman, making what could be an appeal to purity as a way to dismiss relevant criticism or flaws of an argument. Or, as I like to call it, the not a real Christian fallacy, where anytime you make any kind of criticism of the Christian religion or the Christians in that religion and how they behave, it becomes well, they don't represent all of us. Not all men. Let's see what else.
It's the same thing with like the Bible, like back in the day. When not all even though the people at that time worshiped different gods, well, they weren't really Yahweh worshipers because they worshiped other gods. No, they were.
Right.
They were doing it the right way.
Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, I grew up always being told that, well, whatever people are doing, it doesn't matter because they're not worshiping Jehovah, and therefore they're inherently worshiping Satan. Like, so everybody was doing bad. It was bad to even think about worshiping any god other than Jehovah, exactly as Jehovah's Witnesses do. Otherwise, you are, if you're not with us, you're against us. If you're not worshiping Jehovah, you're
Such a good point. Like, if you weren't doing it their way, it was actually like evil. Like, that's why you couldn't even step foot into like a church for any kind of
poor people
ceremony.
don't
or
realize
whatever.
they're worshiping Satan. They're being fooled.
Yeah, and all those songs that they're singing of praise are really just like evil in disguise, and you're bringing on demons or something like.
Right. But you
me
could
crazy.
always argue that anyone who ever claimed to worship Jehovah but did bad things wasn't a real Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, you just. Oh, they weren't perfect, so they don't count. They weren't
But
perfect.
none
No,
of them
they
are perfect.
count.
So none of them are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Is
You
there
don't. So
is
what
there a
is that
fallacy
called
about
then?
expecting perfection for something to be right?
That's a great question. And
Because that
I'm
is something I've
Wait.
been running into recently.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
A fallacy where you expect perfection
Well, wasn't
for
that the no?
something to be right.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's harder to do. It's harder for me to do it the other way around.
Right, yeah. I'm currently looking through a list. Well, let me just search the word perfect. Maybe that'll help.
Was there any other ones on here you wanted to look at? Because I was gonna flip to
Perfect
another
solution
one.
fallacy. Solutions to problems are rejected because they are not perfect. Also called the nirvana fallacy.
Ooh.
Oh, I've heard about things like that in like activism. Where like if your
That's
solution isn't perfect, it's like you're so horrible. Like,
yeah.
oh, this isn't gonna work. Like, okay, this is gonna do some things. Give me a better answer. If you don't have one, then
Right.
shut up.
Yeah. Yep, I have recently run into that with the subject I've been talking about.
That we talked about before.
Yeah, and a lot of times the way I discover these fallacies is I make them myself first. And I've gotten pretty good in my life at recognizing when I have flawed thinking. And every time I have flawed thinking and I recognize it, I immediately like, why is my brain doing that? And I further investigate it. So whenever I am thinking, well, I can't believe that because it's not perfect, but I see somebody else believe it, even though they know it's not perfect, I further investigate why I feel that way and why they might feel that way.
That's smart. I think that's a great thing to do. Exercise your cognitive bias there, or dissonance, whatever.
That goes with, any fallacy. If you can recognize it, that's
yeah, that's the thing. You got to
half the battle.
recognize it.
Yeah.
But you got to know they exist, and you have to have a name for it, or at least a concept in your brain to associate with it. If you don't know they exist and you've never thought of them before, that's why I go to that college class when I was 23, 24. I don't even know how old I was. And it was like, why is this the first I'm hearing of this? Like, some of them sounded familiar, but I was like, there's so many things, and there's ways to think about stuff. I never even thought about thinking of these perspectives. How many times have I heard people in my family or in my life use these exact kinds of bad arguments to convince me to continue to do what I've been doing?
Mm.
And then now using that to guilt trip me to continue to go back and do it again. And it was just eye-opening. So if you don't know information is out there, or there's a name for the thing you've been feeling or sensing or seeing, and now you have something to go off of, it's hugely helpful. For people who like to see things from a different perspective, I also have a different image that I also Google imaged off the internet. And so this is just kind of breaking them down a little bit differently. And there's some different terms. Some of them I think are the same kind of fallacies, but they're just called something different. So, but just seeing like the Venn diagram of where they overlap and looking at it in different ways.
Like you said, overlappy.
And so like they've broken up logical fallacies separate from argumentative errors versus cognitive errors. So like confirmation bias is over here. Ad hominem is up here, right? Because you're making an argument and you're just going to attack your opponent. Over here, confirmation bias is, let's see, where the heck is it? I can't read it. It's too small.
I can't see.
It's too small. Let's see. Cognitive confirmation bias is the tendency to notice, remember, and or give particular weight to things that fit our pre-existing beliefs, and to not notice, not remember, and or not give weight to anything that contradicts our pre-existing beliefs. A good example of this would be counting the hits and not counting the misses.
Mm-hmm.
So like if somebody makes a prediction and then they only go, look, I was right 5 times.
Right.
I was wrong 800 times, but 5 times I was right. Right. And so we can see what we want to see. There's I can think of a lot of examples for this, but I might make some people upset if I point it out. So, anyways, I think we'll just leave it at that, and maybe people can think of their own examples or where they've seen it happen before. But it's a lot of places, and unfortunately, we all do it too, to some degree. So just be mindful of it is really all that you can do. What's that?
We all do confirmation bias to some degree.
Yes.
It is pretty hard to get that out of your head, I guess.
Let me give you a for example. I did the math on this a long time ago, and I don't remember the statistics or how it landed out, but I remember my sister saying like she'd post on Facebook, "Oh, it's 4:44. Oh, it means something." Like it had
the clock and it was 11:11.
Meaning, because when she looked at the clock at that exact moment, it was 4:44, and it was all about like 11:11, 10:10. Like any numbers that come up like that. And do you know how many times I counted? I don't remember the number. How many times on a clock you can look at a clock and land on those? I mean, have you ever looked at a clock and seen 11:11, 12:12?
Oh yeah.
A lot of times, many times a year, I see it at 11:11.
Right.
I see 4:20 a lot.
I see that one every day.
And that's no different than just, so what if you pick 1111, right? 11:11 means what? Well, it only means something to you if it already meant something to you.
Yeah.
I wake up at 6:66 a.m.
Sorry, what did you say, Alpha?
I said I wake up at 6:66 a.m.
Yeah, right. Exactly my point. I turned to the page and it landed on 666. Oh no, don't read that page. Superstitions, things, preconceived notions, and we're pattern seeking animals, right? Like looking and finding patterns is evolutionary built into us. It's survival. It's making survival,
right?
Is that a shadow or is it a lion?
That's kind of the whole thing about apes in general, is pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And thumbs.
And thumbs. Opposable. Video gaming thumbs. Anyways, so there's just, I don't know, there's a bunch of different ones on here. It's okay. Anytime's a good time. It's a time machine.
This is a time machine. We're currently living in the time machine right now.
That's right. I don't know. Is there, let me zoom out a wee. Is there any others of these? I just randomly picked one, but you see anything to your liking? Can you see them?
I can see them. I think, yeah, I can see them.
I don't know. They got like a bunch of these in the center. I could also just go to the alphabeticals.
Gosh, there's so many of them. My God.
Ad nauseum. If you've ever heard of the term, I've heard of ad nauseum, and I didn't realize that this is what it was. Repeating something is true over and over again, even after it's been shown to be false. Quick, think of an example.
God, something in the Jehovah's Witnesses. They just repeat it.
I was thinking the election was stolen.
Oh, well, yeah, that's obvious. That's obvious.
We can just
People
play this
still
game with
believe
Donald
it.
Trump. Let's face it.
Pretty much.
Ad nauseum. My D&D character. That's funny. Whose birthday?
I think it's belated for Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan. You're a year older. Sucker. No. Happy birthday.
Could be living forever by now. Ad nauseum. Who's he?
Ad nauseum. I think appeal to ignorance is one that,
What's that one?
is useful. Appeal. Let's see. I can zoom in a little more. Okay. Appeal to ignorance. An assertion that something must be true because it hasn't been proven to be false, or that it must be false because it hasn't been proven to be true. We cannot prove that there is life in the universe other than our own planet, so it must therefore be true that life exists only on Earth.
Okay.
Literally the life, how was it created, evolution or creation book that Jehovah's Witnesses put out. I can't tell you how many times I heard that argument. A lot.
Gosh.
It was like they took this and were like, that's a great idea. Let's just make that half the book.
It was pretty much painful.
Where did Alpha Sub go?
I know. I don't know. I was wondering. I have no idea.
Reading. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
He hasn't come back.
Well, if I'm being that boring, we can cut this.
Like, geez, we'll go. Bye, guys.
This is fine. See if I care. Argument from scripture. Ooh, that sounds good. An argument that if one part of a source being cited is true, then the entire source must be true. Does not apply exclusively to holy texts or biblical scriptures. Ah, shucks.
Isn't that like a one of something that Paul wrote? All scriptures are inspired by God and beneficial for, like, something about them being true.
Just because one part of it is true, therefore they're all true.
Right. Like everything. Yeah, everything's true.
Here's the thing. When you hear these kinds of arguments, if you can think in your head, maybe the other way is also true, then subscription is expired.
Alpha sub.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. This argument that if one part is true, then the whole thing is true. But I can, for example, find plenty of examples in the Bible where it is not true and it is a misrepresentation, or we know it to be that's not the way it works. And yet they're willing to say, well, because this part's true, the whole Bible's true. But they're not willing to say, but we found out this part's not true, therefore the whole Bible is false. I'm not saying they should do that. I think extremes is never really the answer.
Right.
And that's not really the point of the Bible if you look at it from an anthropological perspective. But when people only will go in that direction when it suits their cognitive bias.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this particular one, I kind of like this particular graph, because it does break it up in like a different way to think about it. And you can use confirmation bias to then use any of the logical fallacies or fallacies of argumentative errors or whatever it's calling them, because of your cognitive bias, because that's the priority, and you're just going to start using all these other methods to make your point, and they're all bad because your data is bad, because your point, anyway. Oh, you're back. Yay, the subscription has been renewed.
Alpha subscription expired.
Alpha subscription.
Renewed. Anyway, you didn't miss anything. I'm just rambling.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Are there any other ones you guys have seen that you're
any other ones you guys wanted to hone in on tonight? Can you see? I think they can probably see that. I think.
Let's see. I want to do false dichotomy, which is right up here in the top. What's that? S. Fingers is what?
No. Yeah, that's me. Dang it. Yes,
False dichotomy.
Now. Sounds good.
Okay.
False dichotomy, which was false dilemma.
A false dilemma? You're saying the name is interchangeable?
Yes.
Okay. Which is an argument that claims that there are only two possibilities which need to be considered when, in fact, there could be more. Either or. It's kind of sounding like the either or fallacy. Black and white. Either we cut spending on education or we rack up a huge budget deficit. We don't want a deficit, so we have to cut spending on education. That's kind of the same example the other one used. Okay. Here's one that I think is just something that I've personally.
Before we move on to a different
fine.
Go back to the false dichotomy. What was the example again?
Either we cut spending on education or we rack up a huge budget deficit. We don't want a deficit, so we have to cut spending on education.
All right. So, I just wanted to real quick mention that there's people could confuse this with an actual dichotomy very easily. So, like, you could say we can either have a high budget for spending or not, and that doesn't have anything to do with our total. But I don't know a good example. I guess you could.
Well, what's a dichotomy?
It's a binary equation, I guess. It's one thing.
A division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different.
Right. So I guess
rigid dichotomy between science and mysticism is the example they gave. A false dichotomy would be making a distinction between the education budget and not wanting a deficit. So therefore, those aren't the only two things. It's misrepresenting the things. Anyway, as I understand it. Oops.
I guess just move on. I guess my point was going to be that people could argue this, but you can have a true dichotomy as well. I mean, you can boil things down to an actual binary thought, but it has to be very basic. You can't be like either we can cut the budget or go broke, like you were mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of other examples to use
that one's
besides
hard.
what I'm trying to argue that I'm trying to avoid. Yeah, I just can't think of other examples.
Why are you trying to avoid it?
Because I don't want to become
too big of a conflict. Dang it! What? Me and words today. Good Lord.
I'm struggling too.
Moving on. The one I was going to point out is this just world fallacy. The tendency to believe that bad things happen to bad people and good things happen to good people. I think we all want to think that happens, like
karma,
or the only reason that this bad thing happened to you is because you must be a bad person.
Oh God! No, I hate when people do that weird shit. That's so weird.
Prosperity gospels, right? Where it's like maybe I'm using that terminology
a lot of people think
wrong,
homeless people are bad people. Like,
right? They must have deserved it.
Yeah,
right.
But billionaires deserve billions of dollars because
they've done something phenomenal, right?
That you deserve billions.
No, thank you. Let's eat them all.
Anyways.
You can't be ethical and be a billionaire. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, the rhyming effect. The people to find statements more credible if they rhyme than if they don't.
What?
Yes, this is a real demonstrated cognitive bias. If the glove fits, you must, or if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. That is literally the example they gave is O.J. Simpson.
That's which one is that for?
Yo. I need to write this down. I'm gonna have to start using that fallacy in my titles and shit.
Rhyming effect?
Yeah.
Yes, the rhyming effect. The tendency of people to find statements more credible if they rhyme than if they don't. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
Wow. I've
People love a
never
good
heard that was a
rhyme.
real bias before.
People love a good rhyme. It's I mean, it's a
Wow.
cognitive bias, so a way of thinking, a way of being, I don't know, potentially manipulated. The sunk cost fallacy. This is a good one. Are you guys familiar with the sunk cost fallacy? It's hard.
Yeah.
I've gotten myself into this one a lot.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of J-Dubs. Like,
Oh,
they've
yeah.
been in it-
Cost
They've
fallacy,
been in it
like
for so long. Like, what
Yes.
else they gonna do?
I
Yes.
spent $100 at this penny slot. One more spin, I'm gonna.
I've already spent.
Absolutely.
I've
Yes.
already spent $1.
If you don't know, a sunk cost fallacy is an argument that if a certain investment has been made in some course of action, then the proper thing to do is to continue on that course, even if it isn't likely to succeed. We should continue this war because thousands of soldiers have already died, and you don't want their sacrifice to be wasted, do you?
Right? Oh my God. Like, what a
Right.
stupid argument.
I've gone this far, I might as well keep going, even
Mhm.
though it probably will end in
Well, I feel like this is where the Joe Biden campaign is sunken cost.
Oh my God. It's so
That
sunk.
is-
And it's costing us a lot.
Oh man.
Our dignity.
Cut it loose. Cut
Our
it loose,
freedom.
baby.
Throw it away. Throw it away. Reboot. Start over.
Don't make me cry.
Oh, you should have already gotten all your tears out long ago. You're behind.
I know. It's sometimes
I'm gonna do.
you just you have to turn it off your brain so you can function, and then it kicks back in and you're like, no, it's real.
This is what I
That's
like.
why we need guaranteed paid time off. For when people's
Yes.
brains kick back in, they need a day off just to cry.
Actually, isn't that idea that we have to vote for Joe Biden because if we don't, then the world will fall apart and all this stuff? And I think that's got to be a fallacy in here too, because
Oh yeah.
you literally could just say Pete Buttigieg is going to be running for president, or I'd be like, great, vote for him. Done. Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't know who Pete Buttigieg is, you should look it up. He's really cool. I mean, as cool as any politician can be, whatever, right? I don't trust any of them as far as I can throw them, and I'm not very strong, so there's that
Same.
too.
Politicians I like are illegal for me to say the names.
Jonathan.
A sunk cost fallacy would be a great band name.
I've had it for so long. I just can't change it now.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, married couples stick around just because they've. Mhm.
Yes, marriage.
It's an investment.
I don't. Yes, I have to
Hey,
admit,
that is what holds U.S. marriages together, is that fallacy, huh?
I stayed in a relationship far longer than I should have for that exact fallacy. And if I had just snapped myself over the head with logic, I might have put it together faster, but that's fine. Whatever.
Well, it's very hard to get logic to overrule your emotion, even if
It
you're
is.
a logical person.
It is. And dealing with a divorce and all the things that could go with that is never fun. It's never good. I also like to avoid conflict at all costs.
Right.
So that wasn't a good combination. So anyway, more enough about me.
My life as a fallacy.
Let's see. I don't know. There's a lot of different ones here. I kind of just wanted to go through. We don't have to go through all of them. We never will. I think there's hundreds of them out there, and some of them overlap. Some of them are similar. Some of them are the exact same, but they're just worded differently. I like these ones just because I always hated math. I'm going to show you. I always hated math and didn't understand algorithms and things like that until I started realizing you could do it like this. And then I didn't hate it as much. And then it was helpful and I could put things together of why we care about numbers and how they can play out. And it's, I'm just using this one as an example because of the way they did it. It's called the affirming the consequent. An assertion of the form P implies Q. And then it goes Q, therefore P. So for example, all dogs have fleas. My cat has fleas. Therefore, my cat is a dog. And so it's like, it's one of those like logic errors that once you start putting the numbers in, once you start plugging something into that equation, then you start realizing why it doesn't work or why there's an error or why that's not going to be a good logic for the program I'm building or the math I'm doing or whatever. The building I'm building. And so that was just a concept that I was really grateful that I finally grasped, however late in my life I did. But it was stuff like this that kind of helped logic problems and kind of putting things in this kind of terminology. But
yeah, that's a good one. That's one I need to study these a little bit more. Are we gonna? Did you say we're gonna do a 3-part or something?
Oh, we can do as many parts as we want. I knew one wasn't gonna be enough because just introducing the topic is complicated.
Yeah.
But what I thought we could do is as we kind of introduce
Lord Jesus, no. Let not all humans be Americans.
All humans are Americans.
We be
That's a good example. But what I thought maybe what we could do is we could come up with examples or we could read, say, publications that are available. If anybody had one in particular, I feel like we already did the Life How Did It Get Here book. If you guys watched it all when we were going through chapters, I think we only made it to page 60, but
lots of great fallacies in there.
So many fallacies. So if we don't have anything, we'll just go to jdub.org. There's lots of examples that we can use. But if there's anything in particular people want us to go over or read and nitpick and pick out fallacies, or if we have good examples of fallacies we want to look at, that's kind of what I wanted to do from here is just practice dissecting and looking for them, really.
Yeah, I need more practice with that. So I think this is good.
Right.
And calling each other out when we do it, because that's fun too.
Yeah,
I'm
I need
constantly
Sometimes you need
trying
that.
to find
little
out
smack.
the ways that my thinking is flawed. So this is a very helpful topic.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, well then y'all better stick around for next week where we're going to dive into part 2 and go over some more of these. And if there's anything that you have in particular you want us to speak about next week, you can either bring it, put it in the comments below after the show or something. Whichever. Yeah, did you see Crisis Fish? He was sweating it. He wasn't sure what to believe.
I hope he's believing that he needs to be squashed because that's what's in his future. If I get in a time machine, bro, if I see anything that looks like a mud skipper, like previous to like a million years ago, it's done. It's on site.
Get back in there. I agree. It is on site. Nah, you ain't letting this happen. We don't need to happen. You're going to fuck everything
You
up.
brought us credit scores by jumping out.
Dude, that shit is only recent. Like they're gutting us. They're gutting us for everything. Anyway, okay.
Well,
probably things that could come up next week. Probably things about the system that are all fallacies.
We can get into that. I also thought that what we could do is maybe spin off with this topic is, we can dive into it as much as we want, but then we could look into things like scientific method and how that kind of fits into preventing yourself from cognitive biases or different things like that. That'd be great. A stuffed crisis fish. Then the other thing we could look at, and this was part of that psychology 101 class that I did, which was also looking at perspectives and how our brain interprets the data that we get from our ears, our eyes, like our sensations, our sensory data, cognitively how our brain can work, and just how that all comes together for us to be who we are as humans. But where we are, I guess, logically fallible is built into us. So the more you study about the brain and how it works and how it interprets what we're seeing, how all of that comes together, you start learning about scotomas and hallucinations and visioning and all kinds of stuff that makes you start to wonder what's real. And I don't want to get too into the weeds and necessarily go into like, is this a simulation kind of thing? But that's the extreme version of what I'm talking about. But when you realize that placebo effect is a real thing, is a real physiological phenomenon that happens, that people can really see things that aren't there. You can have mild auditorial hallucinations of things that aren't there and not be a crazy person. It's just what our brains do. And sometimes it does it minimally, and sometimes it does it situationally, and sometimes it's turned on all the time, and it's a very difficult way to live life. And so then you add that with charismatic people and you've got a cult. And so that's where all of this stuff comes from. And yeah, so I'm sure most of you here who are watching are not, this is something that you're probably thought of as well and are familiar with, and maybe you've even researched yourself. So if you have any things that you want to add to this, by all means, we'd love to share things and talk about it. So, but anyway, that's my plan. So stick around if you want nerdy stuff from Dr. Time Waster.
Nerdy.
Let's get nerdy, baby. Thanks everybody for joining. It was a great show. Thank you, Dr. Time Waster, Alpha Sub. Phenomenal.
Hopefully Texas will have its infrastructure shit together, and Tyler can join us next time.
Let's hope. Probably not going to happen, but
yeah, we're going to put hope in
wishful
the
thinking
state of Texas.
Isn't
wishful thinking fallacy? Yes.
Good job, guys.
So proud.
We pulled ourselves out. I love it. All right, guys. On that note,
based on what we learned today, Tyler will not be here next week.
We miss you, Tyler. Not the same without you. All right, see you guys.
Thank you. Bye.